Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and I've been playing PokeMMO for 10 years. And yet I still feel like I've only barely scratched the surface on the things there is to do in this game. And many people ask me how that's possible, which inspired me to make today's video covering just 63 of those things you can do in PokeMMO. Now, I will admit that over time, this list went from just physical things to do to also in adding in goals to aim for as well. I hope this list inspires you to go play PokeMMO and maybe try something new. And I hope that if I ever help your PokeMMO journey, you consider liking the video to let me know or subscribing for daily PokeMMO videos. But with that out of the way, let's just go ahead and jump into it. Number 1 on our list covers Nuzlockes, Hardcore Nuzlockes, and Soul Nuzlockes. If you aren't familiar with these, there's tons of resources online and other content creators that do a better job of explaining these concepts. But essentially, Nuzlockes are just an added set of rules and a more difficult way to play Pokemon. And I really feel like PokeMMO has a really unique position to offer here. PokeMMO is this perfect middle ground difficulty between ROM hacks and between the traditional games. PokeMMO is much harder than traditional Pokemon, but also a lot easier than something like Emerald Gaizo. If you're struggling to quite reach that barrier yet, maybe start with PokeMMO. Number 2 on our list is monotype challenge accounts, or running through the game with some subtype of category of Pokemon, poison types, bug types, ice types, etc. Or even this could include other challenge accounts. For example, I'm on a challenge account called Only Shinies. This is an account where I can only play the video game once I get a shiny Pokemon. Now the starter is shiny locked, and so I have to just sit here at Route 1 and run back and forth. I don't even have my running shoes yet. Walk back and forth until I get a shiny Pokemon. I don't recommend this type of account for everybody, but maybe a monotype challenge lock is a good start. There are so many ways to create a new challenge type account in Pokemon. Don't feel forced to follow someone else's footsteps. Be free to create your own and make your own path. Number 3 on this list is building alt accounts for progression, extra bank space, money making with gym reruns, berry farming, holiday events. Alt accounts are so powerful, and I really can't recommend them enough. I have many, not that many with all the storylines done, but as many as you can get is really powerful as well. If you're ever really bored and don't know what to do, just hopping on a new account and running through the storylines is always good progress and can be good fun. Sometimes just logging off the main account and trying something fresh gives you a really good new perspective. Which is why these first 3 things to do kind of went over those, but now we'll actually be moving on. Quick note, I will be linking videos or video series in the description alongside a lot of these things to do, as I've made videos covering a lot of these things if you want a more visual example or a more detailed guide. Next up on our list, the thing that most people know me for as being a big shiny hunter is going to be horde shiny hunting specifically. I didn't want to loop all shiny hunting methods into one specific spot since they can be so mechanically different, but I also wanted to loop them together to some extent since some are pretty similar. So number 4 is horde shiny hunting. This includes ×3 and ×5 horde shunts. This is a very good beginner shunt, and all you need for this is a Pokemon with sweet scent, which I highly recommend PP maxing, and also hotkeying to your hotkey bar by clicking this little white star right here. And then I recommend a good catching Pokemon to be able to catch that shiny safely. Make sure to test your location in case there's any deadly moves such as Final Gambit or Double Edge so you don't lose that shiny. And then I also have tons of guides and videos covering ×5 horde locations, beginner spots, etc. Keep in mind with ×5 hordes, you'll average around 1,000 encounters per hour if you're quite efficient, so you might get a shiny in around 30 hours on average, and with ×3 you might average around 600 encounters per hour. So ×3 hordes might take you around 50 hours on average for a shiny. Keep in mind with shiny hunting, we're always talking about averages. The shiny rate is just 1 out of 30,000, but that never really changes, nor does that guarantee you a shiny. I've gotten a shiny at 106 encounters. I've been as low as 300,000 dry. When you shiny hunt for a long period of time, you just end up seeing a lot of crazy numbers like that. But all you can do is just keep hunting and hope for the best. And I always wish people to get a shiny as soon as possible. Alright, and then number 5, single and fishing shiny hunting. This is a much more difficult level of shunt coming from ×3 and ×5 hordes, and definitely should be only moved on to once you've kind of gotten familiar with those types of shiny hunts. Or maybe you're coming from a game like RuneScape or World of Warcraft and you're used to the grind and you're okay with delving into something like this. Keep in mind that in current day PokeMMO, they have added lures to the game, expert lures, which are extremely good to use and should probably be used on every single or fishing encounter shiny hunts. Stay away from premium lures though. They are very expensive and not worth it. I recommend staying away from them. There's tons of good single encounter and fishing encounter shiny locations around the world. I've also made videos covering those, which should be linked in the description. Now, on average, if you're doing single encounters with lures, you'll average around 300 or so encounters per hour, which leaves you with around 100 hours for your one shiny single encountering. Keep in mind when you're single encountering, you'll often get wrong shinies over and over again before you get that one shiny you're specifically going for, which usually makes single encountering a multi-100-hour kind of hunt. Now, fishing is even slower. Usually you're going to average around 220 encounters per hour when fishing, making it a 136 hour per shiny shunt. 136 hours per shiny, and that follows the same sort of rule where you might get a shiny Basculin 4 times on average before you get that shiny Dratini, for example. Now we move on to number 6 on this list, egg/fossil/repel shunting. These are the god tier hunts. These are very time consuming and extremely expensive. When I say that, I'm talking 6 to 18 months of hard work and around 120 to 150 million Pokeyen consumed just to see something like this. These are pretty much reserved for the 1% of the 1% of players. These are not for everybody. They're very difficult. I don't recommend anybody doing these unless you're crazy enough to go for that rare shiny you want so much, that shiny Metagross, that shiny Charizard, etc. I can't even begin to explain the method for this as it's pretty freaking complicated. There will be a very in-depth guide linked in the description. Alright, moving on from shiny hunting onto number 7 on our list, something I haven't even touched very much. Number 7, Battle Tower PVM. This is a really cool and underrated mechanic in PokeMMO. You can earn lots of BP this way. You can also play with your friends and do cooperative Battle Tower PVM, and it's one of the only and really cool multiplayer cooperative PVM experiences within PokeMMO. Once again, I don't have a whole lot to personally add to this, but I'm sure there's tons of guides and information out there on a super underrated PVM mechanic. If you're looking for that endgame piece of PVM, right now, Battle Frontier is it. Hopefully they add raids or dungeons in the future, but for now, Battle Tower is a solid piece of content. Number 8 on our list is gym reruns. This is by far the best and most consistent moneymaker in PokeMMO, where you rebattle the game's gym leaders in a double battle format. It can be really difficult to learn and pick up, but once you have the team built and once you have all the regions done, it's really simple to run through every day, and it's something that everybody should aim for. Some people even go as far to make it a competition and go for world record attempts. But think of gym reruns as your daily activity, getting your money making out of the way so you can do everything else and play the game. Gym reruns are so powerful. I can't get over it enough. Everyone should be doing gym reruns daily. I stream them usually daily, Monday through Thursday here on YouTube and on my Twitch as well. If you want to check them out, as well as an in-depth guide linked in the description. Continuing with the money-making trend, we have number 9, which is catching Pokemon for profit. The PokeMMO devs have done a wonderful job of balancing the economy around 1x31 Pokemon, making it so that catching pretty much any Pokemon for profit is always decently viable as a money-making method. Some Pokemon are better than others. I have tons of guides and videos on my channel, once again, covering different Pokemon and the best Pokemon to catch for profit. You can start catching Pokemon for profit even on Route 1 when you just start the game. You could do it after you have all 4 regions done. You can pretty much do it whenever, pretty much wherever, and make solid Pokeyen. Number 10 is frisking hordes for profit. What that means is leading your party with a frisk/thief Pokemon like Baynet and sort of checking to see if the Pokemon in this horde have an item. This is a fantastic way to make a solid amount of Pokeyen per hour while also shiny hunting at a really rapid pace. Two of the best locations to do this at are here, Heatmore at Victory Road in Unova, or here at One Island in Kanto. Over here on Kindle Road, you can find ×5 hordes of Meowth and Ponyta and get yourself some amulet coins. Both of these spots will net you around 100 to 150k Pokeyen per hour, while also giving you around 800 to 900 encounters per hour. It's a great shiny hunting method if you prefer Ponyta, Heatmore, Meowth, or just want to make some Pokeyen. Number 11 on our list is Payday plus Pickup for Profit. This involves using the Payday move and the Pickup ability at a good location like Dragon Spiral Tower to kill a Pokemon, get some Pokeyen, and get items along the way. Usually you'll make around 100 to 120k Pokeyen per hour, see some pretty good Pokemon. At this location, you have a chance for Shiny Dratini. It just so happens to also be one of the best Dratini spots in the game, so you're able to hunt for a very rare Shiny and make some solid pure Pokeyen. Keep in mind to make sure you're using a Meowth with pickup and not a Persian. Using a Persian is going to lose you out on around 50 to 60k, like half your Pokeyen per hour, as well as make sure to sell most of the items you're getting, like the Dragon Fangs, like the Rare Bones, etc., directly to a Pokemart. That's one of the most powerful things about this method. You don't have to wait on the GTL or wait for someone to buy your items. Number 12 is breeding for profit, a complicated one to explain to new players, something that takes a lot of game knowledge, upfront capital and Pokeyen, and kind of game experience. Breeding for Pokemon in PokeMMO consumes the two Pokemon you're using, as well as you have to spend more money on things like braces and such. But you are able to control the IVs very well in PokeMMO and consistently breed up to a 5x or 6x 31 Pokemon. Breeding for profit can make anywhere from, stay with me now, 400 to 600,000 Pokeyen for profit. I've easily made these numbers myself pretty consistently. Now, it's not just that easy. The downsides are, once again, the game knowledge, the barrier to entry, the experience, the upfront capital, as well as it's very exhausting and mistakes can be made with breeding for profit, which can cost you tens or hundreds of thousands of Pokeyen in an instant if you aren't careful. I know breeding for profit can be really intimidating, but you can also keep it really consistent and low profile by doing 2x or 3x 31s. If you ever notice that catching Pokemon for profit isn't really making you much money at the moment, try breeding for profit. Usually when catching Pokemon for profit is like making you less money, breeding is making you more, and vice versa. The economy is perfectly balanced around catching 1x 31 Pokemon, consuming them, and using them together alongside these braces to create better IV Pokemon. It's a really, really good system, which inevitably needs this amount of people catching Pokemon and people breeding them. Number 13 on our list is going to be constructed PvP. What I mean by this is OU, UU, doubles, or my favorite personal tier, and NU. Now, if you're confused by what any of these means, they're essentially power levels or rankings for Pokemon. In general, Pokemon in the OU tier are some of the strongest, UU are sort of middle of the pack, NU are the weaker Pokemon in PvP. But it's all really decided based on percentage, how much people are using them, as well as a tier council kind of covering over it and making sure everything is balanced. Constructed PvP does have a high barrier to entry and can be difficult to get into since you need a full team of Pokemon. I will say PokeMMO PvPers are also on average a lot better than your average Showdown PvPers in my personal experience and opinion. I do have an extremely in-depth 1 hour long guide on how to get into PvP as a beginner and make it all the way to the end game of tournaments, linked in the description. Number 14 is going to be randoms PvP, sticking to that same PvP-centric thing, but I think randoms is wildly different from constructed PvP. This is where most beginner players go, and I always encourage beginner players to go here. Randoms is really, really good for helping beginners get into PvP because you don't need to build a team. They just supply you with a team. There is a bit more RNG with randoms, but be careful not to blame all your wins and losses on RNG. There's a lot of skill and strategy, unique strategy to randoms involved as well, such as hiding information or not concealing Pokemon to your opponent. Randoms is a ton of fun, whether you're a veteran or a beginner. It's honestly my favorite tier to play right now. It's just an absolute blast. On to number 15, sticking to the PvP theme, but going into something a little more specific, we have unofficial PvP events. This consists of different and weirder tiers if you prefer stuff like this, thinking of Little Cup, Monotype, untiered tournaments. If you want to do something more personal with other players, or maybe more long-form tournaments like something like the PSL, aka the PokeMMO Super League, which is a very long-standing, long-form, long-running PvP tournament for some of the best of the best. And these things can have huge prize pools, like 177 mil you see here. But you do have to have a lot of skill if you want to try to tackle this prize. On to number 16, another piece of content that I haven't touched too much or don't know a whole lot about, and that's going to be secret bases. There's actually a ton of items to collect, a lot of things to do when it comes to decking out your secret base. Now, hopefully one day I can put more time and energy and Pokeyen into this and make an in-depth guide, and if I do, it will be linked in the description below. But don't sleep on secret bases. They're a surprisingly fun mechanic to build for, collect for, and work towards. Number 17 is going to be farming for ribbons / limited particle effects on special Pokemon that you care about. There's a very good guide written by best friends on this, linked in the description, as well as thank you to Fawn for actually supplying the Pokemon. Another piece of content I don't know a whole lot about, aside it comes from Hoenn in the sort of beauty contests and everything. Another piece of content I don't know about. What am I, a noob? But this can be a really fun thing to do if you have that one shiny you worked super hard for and really care about and want to reward them. Maybe go get them some ribbons and particle effects. Certain particle effects can also only be achieved by defeating a certain boss during a certain holiday event like this one, and it's only available for a limited period of time. Number 18 on our list is going to consist of investing in long-term sealed product or vanities for investments or returns in 2 to 4 years. Whenever investing in something like this, I always tell people you have to be willing to hold for at least 2 to 4 years, and if you aren't willing to do so, I probably wouldn't even recommend investing. There are other items that you can do short-term investments on, but for something like this, you gotta have patience. If you want to eventually become a billionaire in PokeMMO, making a ton of Pokeyen upfront and then investing it long term is really the only meaningful way to do so, unless you want to do gym runs 20 hours a day like a psychopath. Number 19 on our list is going to be vanity collecting. This is just super broad and could be split up into multiple sections, but this one is focused mostly on just simply collecting and buying the vanities that you enjoy the most. There are tons and tons of vanities within PokeMMO. I only own a very small amount of them. You can see how many options I have here. If you don't know really where to start with vanities, there's also an incredible tool on PokeMMO.hub that actually gives you a cosmetic helper and lets you select any vanities that exist in the entire game. So you can go ahead and see maybe what vanities you might enjoy or might look good on your character. Number 20 on our list is going to be competitive Pokemon collecting, and funnily enough, I don't think you need to enjoy PvP or play PvP to collect competitive Pokemon. I know that may seem silly to some, but think of it as someone who collects Pokemon cards without actually playing the TCG. Simply the act of collecting can be a lot of fun and a challenge enjoyable on its own. Number 21 is going to be sort of trophy Pokemon collecting. Whether you collect 6 times 31 Pokemon or 6 times 0 Pokemon, these can be a really fun thing to collect. Competitive Pokemon absolutely don't have to be 6 times 31, so sometimes you just kind of want to go that extra mile just to see those green numbers to be satisfied or those red numbers to laugh. Number 22 is going to be Pokedex completion. Gotta catch them all. Some people choose to go for a live, living Pokemon dex, which, while that's really awesome, it will absolutely hog your PC space in PokeMMO. So I strongly encourage you making an alt account dedicated just to holding all of those Pokemon. Completing your Alpha Pokedex is also a super underrated sort of side goal alongside the normal Pokedex. Even though there's not a reward to completing the Alpha Pokedex like there is to the normal regional Pokedexes, it's still a wickedly satisfying completionist goal to see all of these lit up red. Number 23 is vintage Pokemon collecting. This one gets me really excited because this is something that's really only taken off as of recently, since they actually added in the advanced search and more filters, you can actually add the catch year of Pokemon now in your search functions within the GTL, allowing you to effectively actually search for and collect these Pokemon. Any 2012 Pokemon right now goes for a minimum of 70k, no matter what it is. Things like 2012 starters or shinies will also go for a ton more Pokeyen. Here we have a Safari caught Kangaskhan, honestly kind of cheap at 1500. 2013 the price goes tremendously downhill. However, if you have like shinies or starters, those are still worth, as you can see, a bit more Pokeyen from that year, which is fantastic. A lot of changes have happened to PokeMMO over these amount of years. Being released in 2012, we've seen the physical special split together. We've seen different Pokemon be drastically changed. We've seen Garchomp come into the meta game, teleport buff, etc. Things have competitively changed drastically, as well as PVM changed drastically. We've seen total AI and PVM overhauls to the difficulty of the storyline. It's been a lot, and things have changed a lot, as well as with breeding, consuming your Pokemon. A lot of these older Pokemon have been bred and been consumed, so they may not be around forever. Old shinies or starter Pokemon like this 2012 Charizard that I absolutely cherish can be especially rare and very in limited supply. Collecting vintage Pokemon is just something super special to me, and I have a lot of respect and love for the people that do it. You're essentially treasuring a piece of PokeMMO history. I know I'm rambling a lot about this one, but I think it's really special, and I think it's super underrated. Go ahead and try to get your favorite Pokemon from 2012 or 2013, even up to 2014, but really, I think 2012 is the peak year, 2013, and then, yeah, it kind of goes on from there. Number 24 is going to be shiny collecting subsets, not just from shiny hunting, but maybe going for specific types of shinies, getting as many green shinies as possible, maybe as many purple or blue shinies as possible, maybe collecting all dragon type shinies as possible. Shiny collecting in certain subtypes and subsets can be a ton of fun, super underrated, and gives you motivation and goals on different shinies you wouldn't maybe normally hunt. Number 25 on our list is going to be participating in catch events and other community activities. Catch events are a blast. It's a way to make consistent Pokeyen from catching Pokemon for profit, as well as having a chance at an overarching prize, like a shiny or maybe high competitive tier Pokemon. For example, this shiny Delibird right here, I just clicked on a random one. There's also so many catch events every week, it's absurd. You could do one every single day if you truly wanted to. There's at least 3 to 4 official catch events a week, as well as many unofficial catch events, or even catch events in other languages if you're willing to do that language barrier, or maybe you're multilingual. That can be a huge benefit in PokeMMO, as it's a very international game with a huge audience. Number 26 on our list is going to consist of running a community service, whether that's XP training, EV training, a breeding shop, etc. There's actually a surprising amount of stuff you can do. Have a little shop like this. People put a lot of effort into sort of their shop front, either in my Discord server via the trading lounge, or in the official trading forums on the PokeMMO official forums. It can be a huge fun. It's a way to interact with players in a more meaningful way, as well as kind of running a little virtual shop. It's not really as prevalent nowadays as it was in the past. Now with the GTL, there is less reason or less incentive to doing this, but I recommend all players trying this once. It's honestly a huge amount of fun. I think people underestimate how good it is nowadays as well, because you'll often get high-tier competitive players ordering Pokemon from you. It's a great way to build relationships and connections and sort of network in a weird way in PokeMMO, but that's hugely beneficial, as most people know. Getting consistent customers for Leppa berries or your Ditto boxes eliminates the wait and allows you to sell things faster, make more Pokeyen, and have, once again, higher connections to other teams if something comes up or if you need someone to have your back. Number 27 is going to be to join a team and participate in Shiny Wars and other private events, making friends, building connections. Teams are one of the best way to stay active and have fun in PokeMMO, and there's so many options out there for incredible teams within the game. I do have a guide on the benefits of teams, as well as how to join a team, which once again will be linked in the description. Number 28 is meme item collecting, something like Damp Rocks to the moon, baby. As much as that may sound like a joke, and it kind of is, that's part of the fun. It's kind of similar to collecting 6x0 Pokemon. Collecting a ton of a really low value item, or maybe even a mid value item. Something like Koban, or something like Bunny Tails. Something that may not be worth a whole lot one day, but you can get a huge stack of, is really fun to just sort of see the stack grow, and see how many of them you can collect. Number 29 is going to be gambling. No, not at the Celadon Casino, but even worse, with your Pokeyen with these sealed products. I really can't stress enough, I do not recommend doing this, but I wanted to at least list it as an option. It's technically there if you want to, but this is how to go bankrupt in a heartbeat in PokeMMO. You will lose money on average, even if there is a chance of you opening something like the White Rabbit plush from the most recent Red Lucky envelope. Is it really worth it? Probably not. Now moving on from degenerate number 29 to highly respectable number 30. Running a team or being an administrator within one is a very high tier challenge. Managing upwards of 150 people is not an easy thing to do, and you want to have a personal connection with all of them. Take applicants, go over resumes, understand what kind of team or what kind of goals you want to have, organizing tournaments within those teams. It can be a really rewarding challenge. I myself co-led a team with fellow player Joshua back in like 2013 to 2015, and it was a blast, but man, does it definitely burn you out over time or take a lot of energy. It's really fun, but really exhausting. You'd be surprised at how much goes into it. Running a Discord, making an official forum post, obviously resolving any conflicts within the team, hosting the events, taking donations, giving out rewards to your players, having those communications and relationships with your players. It's a lot, but it's a blast. And number 31 is kind of comparable to that. Number 31 is going for CM or other staff position. CM stands for Community Manager. This is similar to being a team admin in terms of social skills, patience, and helping other players. You'll have the absolutely dreadful duty of watching over global chat, keeping people in line, addressing people, helping people, answering all questions in the chat, as well as sometimes helping with trade evolutions, which is secretly one of the most powerful things that community managers will often help with. I'm not gonna lie, I would never personally want to be a CM. It seems like one of those wildly thankless jobs that you're putting in so much effort and patience and kindness into. Huge respect to those that go for it, and much love to our current CMs in the game. We truly don't appreciate them enough, so a huge hats off to them. Number 32 is going to consist of flipping on the GTL or maybe even sniping good finds for profit. Flipping is really, really good money, up there with breeding at around 400 to 600,000 Pokeyen per hour, maybe even more or less. You know, it's depending on your game knowledge, your skills, your upfront capital. Shiny flipping is a cool subset of this. Vanity flipping, item flipping. Item flipping is good to start off with, but you'll often find less things to actually flip since those are much easier to track. Flipping is going to be comparable in PokeMMO to most other MMOs like RuneScape or World of Warcraft, but it gets even more complicated since there's so many things to factor in when pricing a Pokemon, and you have to make fast split decisions when hyper refreshing the GTL looking for those deals. But it does follow the simple concept of buying low and selling higher. Number 33 is going to be making mediocre competitive Pokemon for profit. This usually consists of just 25 to 20 plus in every stat, 25 plus in the stats you really need, and then you do need either a neutral or a positive nature. For example, I found this Trubbish in the making of this video, 25 plus attack and speed, 20 plus in every other stat, and its jolly nature, which is actually really good for a comp Garbodor. How many people actually want a comp Garbodor? Not that many, and that's where the issue comes in. However, this Geodude is bashful, so a neutral nature, it's usable for a beginner PvPer or someone trying to find out if Golem works in their team, and Golem is a pretty high desired and good PvP Pokemon. This might be worth buying for 5k, simply EV training and XP training, selling it off for 50k. Usually beginner or mediocre comps will go anywhere from like 30 to 100k, but it depends on the IVs, depends on the desirability of the Pokemon, etc. But a lot of players, beginner PvPers, need them to test to see how much they know about PvP, if it works in their team, and even veteran players will actually buy mediocre comps sometimes just to test to see if the synergy makes sense and they should spend the money on a 5x31 or better one. Number 34 is XP training simple mons like Deano and just evolving them for profit. A really good example of this is you just buy a Deano for 2k or less, level it up, XP train it up into a high dragon, and then bam, you sell it for 20k, make around 15 to 18k per Pokemon. Really simple, really easy, anyone can really do it. It's not just Deanno that work like that. Make sure to actually check around and see what is selling for more Pokeyen. So for example, Dragonites can go for 6k. Honestly, not too much in comparison to Dratini, but there are other high-level Pokemon that are like this. Volcaronas, for example, 30k for the cheapest Volcarona. Larvestas should be a lot cheaper at 6k, a lot of margin there. A lot of casual players will buy these either for the Elite Four or just for collecting for fun. There is a limited market on them since more experienced veteran players aren't really looking just for these Pokemon. Maybe to get it like owned OT in their Pokedex, but even then you need to catch it OT one day. So that's really more of a limited market towards casual players. Number 35 is going to be participate in community fashion shows with vanities you've collected and outfits you've curated for prizes and to show off your beauty. This is something that sometimes I host these fashion contests. There are other unofficial ones being held on the forums. These can have pretty large prize pools sometimes. A lot of times when I do them, I honestly just rate people and kind of have a fun time on stream. Make sure to check them out. I think fashion shows are a really good way to sort of give players a reason to collect those outfits, go for those synergies, and actually put time and energy into the vanity aspect of PokeMMO. And number 36 follows a similar vein, hosting your own unofficial events. Whether you want to do a specific catch event, something like Shuckle in the Safari Zone only, maybe you want to host a Metronome PvP battle, maybe you want to do something that's never been done before. Anyone can go host an unofficial event on the forums. And if you have something interesting in mind that nobody else is doing, definitely go for it. Number 37 is going to be researching the PvP metagame. You can do so by clicking matchmaking signup, going to statistics, and then browsing data to your own heart's delight. There is so much information here, it's insane. You can see what Pokemon are being used the most, with what items, alongside what Pokemon, with what nature, with what abilities. If you want to get into PvP, this is a must-view resource. You should be looking over this pretty much every single day. There's also the PvP tiers in the Pokedex to learn those and learn matchups. Alongside the ability, you can actually spectate high-end PvP games in PokeMMO just in live time. We can go ahead and check out this match against two of the highest level players in the game. This person rocking a Ditto on their OU team at 750 plus elo. That is really cool to see. Stuff like this is maybe not often stuff you'd imagine. You don't really see this stuff in PvP statistics. It sort of gives you those intangibles. What are high level players using at a high level metagame that may differ from the lower or more average metagame? Not only can you spectate current high-level games, you can also spectate tournaments, which is one of the most underrated things, once again, that people look at. You can go to tournaments, go to tournament history, and I believe you can actually spectate these matches. Let's see, this was the final match. We can go ahead and actually view this. This is the highest, utmost level of Pokemon PvP, just at our fingertips. Research and information galore. We see a Probopass in Ninjast in the finals of an NU tournament. We see Pikachu, we see Drapion, we see Osmo, Vanillix, Gligar. We see lots of information, and there's tons to learn from these. Play styles, statistics, natures, metagames. It's so much. And it's just so underutilized. No matter what you want to get good at in life, usually VOD reviewing is a really powerful thing. Whether you're an NFL player, a League of Legends player, if you are, I'm sorry, a PokeMMO player, or whatever it may be, you can get better and better from VOD reviewing yourself and good players. Number 38 is arguably something only for the criminally insane. We're going to be talking about Safari shiny hunting to make you feel alive again. I don't recommend this to the average player, and the average player is smart enough to just stay away from this. With the shiny odds being 1 out of 30,000 in PokeMMO, the idea of losing a shiny from them simply running away in the Safari Zone is that much scarier. However, you know what? After 10 or 20 shiny hunts, sometimes you want to be a little risky and have a little fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. Keep in mind that usually spamming Safari Ball is your best bet if you happen to encounter a shiny in the Safari Zone. This could really save you some grief, and a huge salute and my condolences to those who have lost a good shiny in the Safari Zone. There's nothing quite like seeing it. Now, if you were a Farmville kid, or maybe you enjoyed herblore farming on your RuneScape Iron Man, I think berry farming is going to be right up your alley, which is why number 39 is berry farming. If you enjoy those farming type simulators, you can make a ton of Pokeyen in the process. Another method or gameplay mechanic that, once again, you can actually visually see I'm not very good at, but it can be really good. Don't sleep on berries. There's tons of great guides out there for it. Number 40 is going to be Elite Four reruns. These are great for money and a difficult PvM challenge. Rebattling the Elite Four is very, very difficult, time-consuming, and expensive if you mess up. But there's also a huge reward if you do happen to pull it off. There is also a huge barrier to entry with the amount of high-quality Pokemon, 6x31s, 5x31s you need, as well as revives and potions. Even the best strats use a lot of healing items. So I really only recommend this for the advanced players. I myself even stay away from E4 reruns, but I probably should recommend them a little more. Number 41 is going to be Shiny Hunting Wars. I know I touched on this earlier, but I think it deserves its own section, as video game competition and competition in general can really bring out the best in players. Reserved for those extreme players who want to test their stuff against the best. Shiny Wars is all about hunting as hard as you can, usually for a week long, and seeing how many shinies you can get with a chance at winning prizes and glory. This recent Shiny Wars for Team Mister was incredible. There was some movie type comebacks, as well as a prize pool of around 100 million Pokeyen, which most of us didn't even care about. You do something like this for the challenge, for the glory, and to earn the respect of the team and other PokeMMO players. Number 42 is going to be making mods to help your own PokeMMO experience, or just installing other mods that people have created. There's an entire client customization tab on the official PokeMMO forums. You can make custom themes, artwork, all that stuff is all done through the forums and super encouraged. Using other people's mods and testing them for them or having fun with them is fantastic. Everything is usually developer approved here as well. Whether it's 3D sprites, just fixing a small annoyance via sounds, or totally changing the way that your game looks, custom themes, mods, etc., all do a fantastic job. Number 43 is content creation. A lot of people laugh at me when I say this because I know it can be done for any game, which I think is super fair, but I think it's worth including as it adds an entirely new element to the game and will bring a new sense of enjoyment for many players. I can't recommend enough just trying to put out some videos or just streaming and seeing who watches. I think there's also a huge undertapped market for many specialties within the content creation scene, something like long form streamers, more entertaining streamers, making meme content like barrels. There's tons of other great PokeMMO content creators out there. Maybe specializing in something like Nuzlocke would be incredible to see. We had a market specialist with something like PokeMMO Investments. There's just so much to do in PokeMMO, so much to talk about that, once again, I think you've seen throughout this video, I can't cover everything. I'm only one person. I don't have the time or energy to cover every single thing that there is to do in PokeMMO. I'll try my best, but there's just so much that I can't get to everything. So I always encourage other content creators to help fill those gaps for me. The thing that I care about the most is spreading of information and spreading of fun and enjoyment within this game. There is a ton to do, and it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot to talk about, and people should do it. The number one thing I tell people is don't worry about planning for that perfect video, that perfect stream. Just go out there and make something. The faster you start, the better. Just do anything. I believe in you. You'll do a great job. Number 44 is kind of similar to 43, and I'm kind of piggybacking on that, but speaking of mods and content creation, we kind of combine these for number 44. Twitch Plays PokeMMO is actually the only bot, quote unquote, that's allowed in the game. So making sure to engage in a stream with that, or setting up your own stream with the developer's permission, is a really cool thing. The fact that you can do Twitch Plays PokeMMO is awesome to me. If you aren't familiar, Twitch Plays PokeMMO is essentially a live stream on Twitch where people in chat can control the in-game character via the directional pad and movements and chat commands. You can make the character move, you can make it shiny hunt, you can make it release Pokemon or shinies that other people have caught. It's a really chaotic experience. Number 45 is holiday event dungeons. I can talk forever about how much there is to do during holiday events, and since they only last a limited period of time, usually 1 to 2 weeks, you only have so much time to do it all. But one of the biggest things is the raid/dungeon type system that's implemented during some of them. For example, during the Christmas event, 4 players will link up into a group and run around collecting resources from scratch while they make themselves act as the Pokemon with a limited amount of PP and a designated moveset from a curated list of combinations of all Pokemon typings, plus either offensive plus defensive. I know that was a lot and it's overwhelming, and it kind of is, but I have a lot of videos and guides covering playlists covering every single holiday event. So if you want to research one specifically, there's many playlists and many resources on my channel. Many powerful combinations will pop up during these events, and it's important to keep an eye out for pledge combinations during the Christmas event, for example, with fire, water, and grass offensive pledges. Your goal is to defeat as many of the limitless spawning enemies and boss battles every so often for as long as you possibly can, and you end up earning stacks and stacks of sealed holiday presents like these, which you can either open up and gamble or sell directly, which I usually recommend doing, or at least investing long term in. Holiday events like this are often some of the best money making methods in the game during their release. Number 46 is going to be leaderboard competing for the holiday event dungeons. When you do something like this, you actually get a shout out from the developers and earn a very limited prize. Obviously, banking off of number 45, which we just covered, but deserving of its own spot, since learning and participating in the event dungeons is hard enough. Most people won't be able to go for top 50 on the leaderboards and get an extremely rare and limited vanity that only those on the leaderboard by the end of the event receive. It's truly an earned vanity of skill and dedication, and is highly respected within the community. Number 47 is going to be catch all of the legendary Pokemon. Now, you can actually catch the legendary Pokemon in PokeMMO, but you can only have them for a limited period of time, as many people know. The system is very unique to PokeMMO, very interesting, a lot of fun. You have to go track them down, you have to battle people. It's a King of the Hill style minigame, which I should have a guide explaining a lot more of it in the description below. Number 48 is going to be the Shaman Hunt. As you can see on screen now, this is the only mythical / legendary, it's actually technically a mythical, Pokemon that you can permanently own in PokeMMO. And the way that you encounter Shaman is very specific. You can only catch Shaman during the Lunar New Year event within PokeMMO, which is usually around the end of January or beginning of February. You have 1 to 2 weeks to do a 16-hour-long grind, collecting all of these tablets around the world. And then after that 16-hour grind, you get one chance, one opportunity, one catch, one encounter of Shaman. Now, Shiny Shaman is also the rarest shiny in the entire game because it's not shiny locked, but no one has received one. Shaman has only existed in the game for 1 year, and it's one of the rarest Pokemon in the game because you can only get one encounter per year. Don't miss out on your one Shaman encounter. They only happen, once again, once a year, and they are worth quite a bit of money because of that. So keep in mind, make sure to log on PokeMMO during that late January to early February cycle, and keep an eye out for the Lunar New Year event. Number 49 is going to be collect utility Pokemon. This includes teleport Pokemon, HM friends, catching Pokemon, you name it. This list could truly go on forever. I know that I have 6 different Smeargle builds somewhere in my PC. I have multiple boxes even dedicated to utility Pokemon. This one being called Utility, getting crept over by a bunch of Cranidos I need to sort, and then etc. Also having a ton of utility Pokemon and extra Pokemon throughout it. I have tons of videos on the different types of utility Pokemon, and I just can't recommend them enough. They're just going to make your PokeMMO experience a lot easier and help you do specific subtypes of challenges. Number 50 is going to be collecting multiples of powerful PVM or PvP items. Things like choice bands, choice specs, which I have none of in my box, of course, but a ton of in my PC. I think I have 2 of each of those. Things like choice scarves, things like Eviolites. Okay, now all of these are going to be in my box. It's going to be embarrassing. Rocky Helmet, once again, in my box. I know I have 6 leftovers, none of which are in my box or in my bag. You get the point. Collecting all of these items is wildly important and shouldn't be underestimated. Even getting the niche stuff can be really fun. Sometimes things like the Binding Band has been really good for certain PVM events. Black Sludge, Black Glasses, getting a little bit of everything. Even the lesser powerful Life Orbs, for example, Light Balls. Collecting a ton of these will just save you a lot of time in the future, save you a little bit of hassle. Number 51 is going to bank off of this, but I think it's a really specific one. Hopefully I have some of these. Yeah, I have all of them, thankfully. XP shares. Getting 5 XP shares specifically. That's the magic number, because at peak efficiency, you should actually be using all of them to EV train Pokemon. You can EV train up to 5 Pokemon at once to literally no downside. So you should be trying to do that if you can. Getting a Smeargle with Sweet Scent and then an AoE horde killing move like Discharge, Surf, or Earthquake, or Hyper Voice, for example, for stab, and using that to wipe down hordes of Pokemon, you can EV train a ton of Pokemon at once, get 10 EVs on all of them, and make a lot more Pokeyen or profit, or just save time in general per hour. Number 52 is going to be covering the XP Reamplifier and the Training Link. These are RP specific items. Let me actually show you in the gift shop specifically. These are pretty expensive items considering all things. I think they cost 1,000 RP, which is around 2.5 to 2.6 mil Pokeyen at the current time. They do a very, very specific thing. So for example, XP Reamplifier is essentially an XP all. That's the main thing to keep in mind. You just turn it on or off, but you also do get 5% extra XP on those Pokemon, as well as the Training Link doubles EVs but negates all XP. This is fantastic for training Pokemon for that next storyline, but that's about it. Neither of these items are like super must-haves. They're not wildly powerful like they may seem, unfortunately. I know the XP Reamplifier, the math has been done. When leveling a Pokemon to level 100, you only save like 4 to 6 hordes, which is like 30 seconds to maybe a minute of time, which is pretty funny to think about. Now, while these are RP exclusive items, these are account bound, so they actually can't be traded on the GTL. Thankfully, you can just buy RP in-game if you don't want to spend the Pokeyen or the IRL money on them, which is I'm a huge fan of. You can just buy them in-game with Pokeyen on the GTL or use IRL cash if you want to. Another RP item worth collecting are getting some of the Ocarinas, or all of them if you truly want to collect them all. I currently have 5 Ocarinas existing with Fly, Surf, Teleport, Rock Smash, and Cut. I think Fly is the #1 most important one, then I'd say Surf and Teleport are kind of tied for the next. Rock Smash and Cut are pretty luxury. You really don't need any Ocarinas. Ocarinas exist for all of the HM moves and some of the extra moves. They're really only for luxury and convenience. You absolutely don't need a lot of the Ocarinas. For example, the Dig Ocarina, they all cost around 500k Pokeyen. You'd have to use something like 600 escape ropes before Dig Ocarina actually becomes worth owning financially. So keep in mind, if you want to collect them all, it's really, really fun, and it can be cool to see them light up all in your inventory, but you absolutely don't need them. Now back to PokeMMO Hub, which we covered earlier. Number 54 is going to be browsing market data and other tools on PokeMMO.hub. There's a lot of things you can do. If you have a specific amount of money invested into things like anniversary chests or goodie bags or Xmas presents or whatever it may be, you can see the history of that item, draw predictions, and PokeMMO can really become a spreadsheet market game simulator really quickly. Number 55 is going to be collecting one of everything from your favorite holiday events. During holiday events, a select new amount of items are actually added to the game, and you want to collect whichever ones you enjoy. Some people may use this time to stock up on stacks of vanities for investments, or you could aim to get one of everything and be a little more completionist in that mind state. Even vanities you may not enjoy are sometimes worth getting and kind of fun if you want to go for that. I think it's a huge enjoyment for me personally, and usually if you save up around 25 million Pokeyen before an event, you're usually able to buy at least one of everything, but that can differ. Number 56, aiming for a world first. Even after 11 years, there's still things that haven't been done in PokeMMO, at least with documented proof sometimes. Streaming a hardcore Nuzlocke from start to finish would be a huge W for any upcoming content creators. Many Shalfas or other shiny variants have also not been achieved yet. Who knows? Maybe you could be the first person to get Shiny Shaman. Number 57 is contributing towards the Shiny Existence thread or other community projects. There's tons of stuff on the forums that still need stuff filled out, still need people testing mechanics or seeing what works. Also, mechanics are constantly added to the game, which people need to test. Stuff like when they added the Shiny Consuming Guide for the Prismatic Pearls, everybody who had a Shiny Pokemon had to go through and be like, okay, I have Shiny Shuckle, how much does that trade for? Stuff like this is constantly being worked on, and it's a huge help to the community if you have aspects that they can't cover, if you can give them some proof or help with those things. And then piggybacking alongside that, but in a different sort of aspect, number 58 is helping fill out the PokeMMO Wiki. From collecting random data or movesets from Trainer Lass here and there, movesets, items, anything is a huge, huge help. And having this complete would help a shit ton of players during Nuzlocks or other challenge accounts. I can't tell you how many times I reverted over to the Wiki during my Nuzlocke, only for it to be missing information or usually not having anything, or sometimes even having misinformation. Having a complete wiki is probably one of the most powerful things you can have for a video game. Having that resource for players to go to, especially new players, is wildly important. Information is key. Number 59 is building a PvP team from scratch. That's right, you can actually do that in PokeMMO, since every single tier of PvP within PokeMMO, after getting enough wins, enough matchmaking reward points, you actually are rewarded with a free PvP Pokemon, and this changes every 2 weeks. You can build a PvP team for free via just playing randoms, which is fantastic. You could never spend a dime, any Pokeyen, making a PvP mon and still make a constructed team, which I think is incredible. Allowing players to get into PvP completely for free is a phenomenal reward. You could technically just get your 4 gym badges, jump into randoms, and never finish a single PokeMMO storyline and just become a PvP god, reaching rank 1 in whatever PvP tiers you choose. Number 60 is going to be get max PC storage space. Now, this is an expensive one since you start with only 11 boxes by default and can get all the way up to a maximum of 25 at the time of recording. Each PC expansion drive does cost around 2 million Pokeyen as well, and you can also buy them with RP in the gift shop. This ends up costing around 28 million in total if you want to fully deck out your PC needs. A lot of new players may think that running out of PC space isn't really an option, and it may not be for a lot of players, but once you reach endgame, you realize how many utility Pokemon, PvP mons, shinies, etc. you end up collecting. And if you want to do an egg hunt, go ahead and just dig your grave and make sure you have 25 mil to spend on those PC expansion drives, because you need at least, I would argue, 12 to 14 empty boxes dedicated just to egging, and you only start with 11. So if you have, let's say, 16 boxes, let's say, you know, spent the whatever Pokeyen, whatever mil to get those, you probably dedicate 14 of them to egg hunts, then you only have 2 extra boxes to store all of your other Pokemon. Number 61, storyline speedrunning, a hidden skill in PokeMMO where having alt accounts is so powerful, people underestimate the usefulness of storyline speedrunning. Also, it can just be fun to go fast. Storyline speedrunning used to be one of the main money-making methods in PokeMMO back in 2013 and 2014, when TMs were limited and the only way to get them was through the storyline. Things have changed a ton. It's not quite as useful, but it's still a lot of fun and still really powerful. Number 62 is going to be engaging in PvP balance. Helping discussion on the forums with your ideas and calculations can be wildly beneficial to the community. The current state of the PvP metagame is always encouraged and listened to, and if you're good enough, maybe one day you can aim to be part of the tier council who make some of the final decisions on bans or tiering moves. People take this stuff really seriously. PokeMMO PvP is a really big deal to a lot of people, and I've seen people write absolute papers and essays on why certain Pokemon should be moved or maybe shouldn't be moved. If you're passionate about PvP, you should check it out. Try to learn to become good enough to talk with the best, or maybe if you're just trying to get into PvP, maybe listen to the best players and go over their arguments to understand why things are the way they are. And to end this list off with one of the most classical PokeMMO activities, number 63, AFKing in Vermilion, otherwise known as bank standing or flexing on noobs. Hanging out in the hub city of any MMO to show off the rare shinies and expensive vanities you've achieved over the years is an age-old classic that will never get old. Thanks so much for watching until the end of this video. I hope that this means it was at least mildly entertaining or helpful. And as a quick bonus thing you can do regarding PokeMMO, you could always watch your favorite content creator in the background while you grind. Maybe even like their videos, maybe subscribe, maybe join their Discords or support them via YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, PayPal, or Venmo donations that go a long way for those content creators. A nice comment can also go a long way on a rough day. But anyways, that's it for me. As always, I hope you have a blast playing PokeMMO. Hey, thank you so much for watching until the very end of the video. Hopefully it was a positive asset on your day in some way. And thank you to everyone's name who's on this list, who is a massive positive asset to my day every single day. I appreciate you all. Thank you for going above and beyond and allowing me to do what I do.